Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tara, and we're coming to you live from the Core at Law and Cantata. If you are just jumping on the Facebook or the YouTube live stream, hopefully you are looking for the Mrs. Green's World lecture on demystifying carbon. If you just happen to be scrolling through your social feed and you have 45 minutes to learn something incredible, new, different, please stick around and watch with us. For today's talk, just a few quick things before we get started. Just so you know, you are an active participant in this lecture. We have individuals here in person, and then we also have a full experience set up for you online. So as you're watching, if you have questions, please type those in, and we'll make sure that we get those relayed to Mrs. Green before the end of the talk to hopefully get those answered, at least figure out some good things that we can follow up on if we don't know the answer. As far as this month is concerned, it's Heart Health Month. You've been seeing us come at you with a variety of different topics. And a lot of people said, heart health, why are we talking about the planet? And really our strategy this year was to talk about things that are close to the heart. So we talked about pets. We're talking about our planet. We're talking about exercise. We are talking about heart health. But really it's about all those pieces, which is the whole point of why the Core is here. That holistic approach to healthcare and looking at all the individual parts that make us healthy, happy human beings. So for me, I know for my community, I know for Mrs. Green for sure, taking care of our planet is a big piece of that. So hopefully today you take away something new that you didn't know, or you reconfirm that you're on the right track to doing a few things to help keep our planet as happy and healthy as we hope your heart is. I'm going to hand things over to our speaker today, Mrs. Green, but don't forget to ask those questions if any come up. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, this is going to be really interesting because I'm going to try to address our audience because we do have people who are here, and that makes me very happy because speaking to empty chairs is a little unnerving even for me. And I do like to talk. And I know there are people online. I want to do a shout out to Vince and Kelly and people that told me they were going to be online because it means the world to me. And I will tell you this, for some of you that have heard me do many more of these, this is a tough one for me because I'm not a scientist, but I know a lot. I know enough to be dangerous, and I've had wonderful science friends, scientists that have helped me understand carbon. And as Tara said, you know, I'm Gina Murphy-Darling, but I'm also Mrs. Green. And it's very interesting to how can you not tie the health of the planet in with everything? And that's how I feel, and that's how I live, and that's what I believe in. Because if we don't have a healthy planet, it doesn't matter how much you're exercising. And that's really kind of the truth. We need to start with that. So thank you so much for being here. And like I said, I'm going to be looking here at our audience and looking here at all of you. So thank you so much. Okay. So next, Tara, I'm pushing the next button. Cross my heart. Look. There, good, okay. We are going to really do our best to demystify carbon. In my journey as Mrs. Green, which has been almost 15 years running, this has been one of the most challenging. It's very science-based, and I had to learn it. And I want to give a shout out to my friend, Dr. Jim Beiser at the university, because he sat me down one day with a pad and paper and said, here's what you need to learn. And it stuck, and it helped me. So wish me luck. I think we're going to demystify carbon. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, all right, I got it. Next slide. Okay, a little bit about Mrs. Green's World. We are a multimedia global environmental education platform, and our biggest thing is not just about raising awareness, but about tying action, climate action, because we're way beyond the point of raising awareness about the impact of climate change. Every one of us needs to be pulling our weight, spreading the word, doing whatever we can to implement changes. And like I said, we do raise awareness, but we always want to leave people with an education and calls to action and some hope. And I've had such a journey of just talking to people from all over the world, scientists and passionate people and change agents and movement makers. So that's been my experience. And we do leverage science because most people like me don't care about just about the science. Talk to me at the level that I'm at, which is not at a scientific level, so that I can understand, because there are more of us than there are scientists, and they have incredible knowledge that can help us and move us forward. So I can tell you our information is trustworthy. So there I am with my little butterfly. I am the founder. I'm an environmental educator, disruptor for good. My mother used to call me a troublemaker, and my friend Myron is here, and he can attest to that. I am a little bit of a troublemaker. Disruptor for good sounds so much nicer. I am a champion for Mother Earth. My life has changed completely. Everything in my life has changed, from the toilet paper I use to how long I brush my teeth to where I do my shopping to what I eat. And somehow I always think it's important to mention that I am a Jersey girl, because it seems to come up. And I am also, think I'm going to announce here, Tara, if it's okay, the first chapter of Wordly Anonymous. Because Wordle Anonymous. I'm addicted, and I think it's important to bring that up, because can you imagine there's something new that someone invented that is taking the world by storm? And I'm one of those. I'm sucked in so bad, it's not funny. Okay. Is there anybody either online or here that wants to shout out what comes to mind when you hear the word carbon? Because I always used it a lot, and I'm not sure I knew what it meant. So pollution, okay. Anybody else? Myron, come on. I know you have something in there.
Gasoline.
Yep.
Jet fuel.
Yep.
Coal.
Gasoline, jet fuel, coal, for people that can't hear it, all those things. And yes, industrial farming, is that what you said? Yeah, that's like, we're going to get to the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's bad and ugly, pretty much. I'm being honest. Okay. The thing about carbon as a word in and of itself, a freestanding word, everything is carbon. Everything, every single thing, every rock, everything is carbon. So I have a negative connotation of it, but it's really just we're made of carbon. We eat carbon. Our civilization, our economies, like I said, rocks, our homes, everything contains carbon. So that's it. We are made up of about 18% carbon. I'm not sure which 18% that is. I didn't look that up. And plants are 45% carbon. So inherently, it's not bad. But we have to go into why, when carbon is mixed with anything else, when we get into CO2, that's really what I think most people, was the gap for me. Let's just say that. I can't begin to tell you how concerned I am about the future of our planet. And I like to say that because it's not laissez-faire, it's not business as usual. If you're here and you care, you can contribute to make things better or make things worse. And that's how I feel. And we need like almost all hands on deck making things better. And we will come up with some solutions about that, because climate change, I just want to step out for a second on my daughter and I, Katie, who's here. I have a team member, Lynn, who's here, been with me from the beginning. We watched a special on PBS, which I encourage you to look. It's on sinkholes. And it's all about carbon and methane and the permafrost. But when you watch things like I do, which most people are watching, like, I don't know, billions or something, right? It makes you realize the clear and present danger that, because it's up at the North Pole, I'm not aware of all the methane that's being released into the atmosphere, because the permafrost layer in certain areas is melting. So the methane is escaping, and it's, to see it is like, kind of see it and weep. So here's where, the devil is in the detail. When carbon is formed, carbon dioxide is formed when one atom of carbon joins two atoms of oxygen. Now, I hated chemistry in school, so even saying that is a little bit hard, but it's essential to my understanding because of what I do in terms of being an environmental educator. You have to understand what it is. And this is where, like Myron said, coal, oil, natural gas, industrial farming, it's when CO2 is released, that's the greenhouse gas, that's the big bad wolf, and that's what we have to be aware of. And it's, I remember asking my friend Jim Beiser, I refer to him a lot, I said, Jim, how come if it's global warming, there's that most extreme winter we've seen in our lifetime over there. And he explained what happens. And hopefully when I finish and talk about the atmosphere and why having too much CO2 and methane and all that up there is causing extreme weather. It's almost better to call it that, because if you talk to anybody in America that has a radio, a TV, or a phone, you know that extreme weather is impacting us as we speak. More severe, crippling storms in the east, just no snow in places that have historically have had lots, and it's really a ripple effect because there is just one planet. Okay. Okay. So it all started in our lifetime. When people say to me, you know, the climate changes, people always hear there's cycles and all that. And I very nicely say, mostly nicely say, depending upon how they asked, at what period that you're referring to did we have 7, 8, 9 billion people on the planet? Because there's the rub. It's not about doing anything differently since the Industrial Revolution, which is when we started doing things very differently. It's about what happened. And what happened is lots of people were born, and they're pulling from the same resources that this little planet always had. The planet hasn't gotten any bigger. It's not expanding. There's no more water in the oceans. So people are the challenge, the problem, and only we can change it. And when you look at graphs like this, so I want you to look at this slide. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere was about 208 parts per million. Now it's about 407. So when you think about that increase, it blows your mind. That's a 45% increase, which now I understand. And, you know, like you should see me when I'm stopped at a train, when trains are stopped and all the cars are backed up. I want to get out and say, turn your car off, turn your car off, turn your car off, turn your car off, because idling and traffic, all it does is more emissions, more emissions. And I sit there hyperventilating. And it is what's causing the increase in temperatures. I don't know about you. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I know there are people watching from outside of Tucson. We pretty much didn't get a winter this year. It doesn't look like we will. 4 cold days does not a winter make. And I used to wear my winter coat. Now I can get by with a sweater or a sweatshirt. But in this part of the country, the result is we're not getting a winter, which hurts lots of other cycles. And then when you see in the east and the northeast, the extreme is the other way. So you have extreme flooding, extreme habitat devastation. And when you go west, you see these extreme temperatures are causing the wildfires. My son is a wildlife firefighter, and he describes things to me that you only see in movies, except he sees it on the ground. Okay. So this was one of the things that maybe you understand. I don't ever want to talk under or over my friends that showed up, my audience, my tribe. But what Jim Beiser explained to me, because I threw out that word greenhouse gas, greenhouse gas, greenhouse gas. And finally I said to him, what does it mean? So he said, the earth is a greenhouse. So the greenhouse, here it is, right there with Frosty the Snowman. So, and we're inside that greenhouse, and we keep emitting gases, and there's nowhere for them to go. The atmosphere so far is keeping us safe. There's holes that I think are either starting to burn or will burn. And once there's holes in the atmosphere, which is our greenhouse gas, our greenhouse that keeps us all safe and together, then we've got a problem. But right now, a healthy concentration works and makes all the wheels on the bus go round and round. But when you start, all those gases are being emitted. And he explained it to me. It's like, so here's the roof of the greenhouse, and all the CO2 emissions and methane and all of the things from industrial farms, they're all going up there. They're all being emitted. They never go away. They're there forever. CO2 stays up there. And it's up there. There's way, way, way too much up there already. So when I got the visual of us on the planet being in this greenhouse, I was like, oh, right. So that's what greenhouse gas is. That's why they call it greenhouse gas. And you guys, we've got to we've got to not only lower our emissions, we've got to start figuring out ways to sequester carbon. And there are millions of great minds around the world working on doing that. I want to try, and I can't walk away from here because you guys won't be able to see me, but I do want you to look at this slide here on the right. And yes, I don't know what you're saying. What? Oh, and they'll still see me?
Yes.
Da 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 da. Okay, see, it's a whole new world. Here she is. This is green. This slide to me is like, you got to look at it because look at what it says. Here's what it looks like to be natural. It's okay that we have carbon emissions and methane in absolutely absorbable or quantities that the Earth's atmosphere can handle. When you look here, this is what the human factor has caused. So here's nice blue and happy and, kumbaya, we're doing well. This is what happens, not what has happened. It happened because we're there, like we are here, we are in the hot spot. It's not going to happen. There's so much CO2 up there, just that alone, that we could fry very quickly. I don't ever want to be Debbie Downer or an alarmist, but let's get real, people. We are in triage. We are in a very serious mode. So look at that. We can make the slides available to you for those of you that want to study more. But the human effect is why we are where we are. And Katie, did you want to add anything? My daughter helped me do this, and two minds are greater than one. So I like this quote. It's an existential threat to civilization. And anybody who doesn't believe that, I just want them to spend some time with me, because I didn't start believing that. There's hope. There's going to be some little kid that discovers this, and they're going to do this, and we're all going to be fine. And unless we have a lot of hands on deck, it doesn't have to be all hands on deck, we're in a lot of trouble. And I think there is definitely an existential threat. Okay, I want to take a minute with this, and those of you that are online can see this, but starting at the bottom left, you see the increasing levels. What I like about this is it's all a cycle and it's all connected. It's not like if people stop driving less, we're good, and if some people start using less water, it's good. It's about, we're all in this together. We're all on one planet. And when you look at this and you talk about like heart health, for example, clean air really helps if you have an unhealthy heart. It's harder to breathe. It's harder for your heart to work if you're breathing in. But so what does it impact? When you're increasing with carbon dioxide, water and food supplies, I mean, the impact for people with diarrhea and malnutrition is severe. Severe weather. Everybody knows. Loss of life, loss of home, loss of jobs. Mental health is the #1 challenge facing our country today. And I'm sure it's not just our country. There's a lot of other things. Environmental degradation. I mean, we went to Taos, New Mexico recently, and you should see the Rio Grande. I just said to my husband, I said, babe, look at that. Look, there's hardly any water in it. It's down to, you couldn't take your kayak in it. So that's because there hasn't been as much snow. And hopefully there's been some snow in the northern parts of New Mexico and Colorado. So, and mental health, the thing when I see a fire that wipes out an entire town, some of those people can't just go get a job in the next town over. They can't just go get a job in Circle K. They can't just build another home. If you're more at risk and you couldn't afford homeowners insurance or you rented, it's really a ripple effect and total degradation of people's lives. So there's definitely something in it for all of us if we get it better. I'm doing a lot these days on trying to advocate for the electrification of Tucson because I think it matters. And I will be honest, there are lots of glitches to still be worked out. I would be so disingenuous if I didn't say that because it's new. So we're trying to switch from a gas economy to an electric vehicle economy. And in terms of a social justice issue, it's brought up a lot in discussions and with mindful scientists. Electric cars are not inexpensive. The infrastructure is not there yet, I happen to believe that it's going to happen much faster than we thought. And the plans for installing EV charging stations are unbelievable. And the more people that buy cars, the lower the price will be. So there's got to be hope in that. And that's huge. That's huge. And you'll see why. Change your vector ecology. You know, it cracks me up. We couldn't change this slide because we give credit to where it is. It says where it is from the CDC, but it doesn't even have COVID on there. But this is what happens. And in the vector ecology, one of the things, again, my friend Jim, who should be here, I'm going to give him a lot of grief someday for not coming so he can like stand up and correct me. But when you start encroaching on habitats that animals inhabit and bugs and rats and all of that ecological piece that was their country, their territory, and men start encroaching on it, there's going to be consequences. And we've seen them. It cracks me up kind of that COVID isn't on here because this slide did not mean as much as when I did use this in presentations 2 years ago. It's a really important one to look at. Air pollution and increasing allergens. I mean, I know more people now with asthma than I did ever in my whole life. People using inhalers, people being, having upper respiratory diseases, and it's all because of planetary degradation and CO2 emissions and all that I'm talking about in trying to demystify carbon and then message it with hope because we are human beings. We caused it. So guess who can change it? We've got hope. Air quality impacts. And my journey has been kind of fun. Let me look at the audience here a little bit because sometimes I'm a little late to the party for putting all the pieces together, but think about how many airplanes you see go over in any given day. We're near a path near the Tucson airport and Davis-Monthan. There are lots of airplanes. Well, they have carbon jet fuel. So a lot of it goes in the oceans. There's things that happen for that jet fuel. So it's, again, the people problem, the population. Can you imagine if we live to see the point of we're going to have solar powered planes? I'm ready. So now what? And I just, that's the bad news. I want this to be our time because this is our time. And if you're here, you care about that. I hope, I would think so. And time for climate action is right now. So there are not a lot of you here, but I would love it if you've heard about your carbon footprint, raise your hand. Okay, we have almost everybody. I'm not going to call it anybody who doesn't, but now you'll know about carbon footprint. And basically, again, it's a really simple explanation. It's a total amount of greenhouse gases that you as an individual produce by your actions every day. And I have given presentations where I say everything you do, including breathing, including brushing your teeth, including flushing the toilet, including wearing deodorant, including putting on makeup, all of those things have a carbon footprint. And we've done things to such excess, including increasing our population, that's where the problem is, because it's not just about the makeup you might put on that might be bad for you. It's about what it took to produce it. And then what are you going to do when the container's empty, which creates waste. We have a huge waste problem in our country. And there are movements all over this country, and I'm involved in one of them, to work more on what we call zero waste. Every company, every industry, every event, every individual has a carbon footprint. And in and of itself, it's not negative. It's not bad. If you show up on the planet and you're born, you start having a carbon footprint. And I would say, having had 3 children, that it starts before you're born. When you think about it, the United States is a problem. When you see that 16 tons, the global average for the United States is 16 tons of carbon produced by an individual, and around the world it's 4 tons. And like I'm talking about my friend Myron, he's been all over the world many times. I have not been to as many places as he has, but we have it. We have everything. We have cars, we have stores out the wazoo, we have grocery stores. So that helps us live a quality of life, but around the world, it's not the same. it's really much less. Not everybody has a car. Most people do have a telephone. Even in the Amazon jungle, it cracked me up when I'm deep in the Amazon and someone whips out their cell phone and it works. I'm like, what? But it was like, I never forget it when this person was like, oh my God, do you have service? And so everybody is contributing to that in some way. But in the United States, we get a lot of pushback globally for that because they say, oh yeah, like India says, great, you don't want to use coal because you already are an industrialized nation. What about us? Coal is the cheapest form of energy that we can afford. It's the least expensive. So when we get to where you are, we'll stop using coal as much. And pretty much I've heard leaders say that. I think more leaders are understanding that that's short-sighted because we all better get on deck with making the changes. So does anybody want to offer based on what I said, what you think you could do to increase or decrease your carbon footprint? It's not really rocket scientists, and I hope a couple of people will shout out some answers, even online if we have anything. What can you do? And if my friend Vince is listening or Kelly, what do you think you can do? Because that's what it all comes down to. This is a great overview of the state of the planet. But what it comes down to is, what can I do to make a change? All of us are wearing masks. Do you think that if you're Mrs. Green, that doesn't keep me up nights? Where are they all going to go? It is a huge recycling challenge, and communities around the country are figuring out what can we do with the increased use of masks and plastic gloves and the containers for sanitizers. So does anybody want to shout out what you could do to reduce your carbon footprint?
Eat less meat.
Ta-da! That's the hardest one for me, and it's true. And I have dramatically increased my meat consumption. Dairy, same for dairy. Oh my goodness, same for dairy. It's a huge challenge. We're addicted to our milk and our cheese and all of those things, and it's really hard. I just learned so much about milk and how we don't need it that it shocked me. Because you never outgrow your need for milk. That was a commercial that I remember, but you never really had a need for milk. That's really the truth. Really and truly, it's probably a industry myth that got perpetuated. Drink milk. My mother said it gives you calcium.
So online is having tons of fun with this question. So I'm going to tell you a couple of the ideas. One person named Kelly, I know her. She said she really focuses on how much she drives and tries to carpool as much as possible.
Can everybody hear that, Tara? Can they hear you? Okay, great. Okay.
And then the second one is looking at thrift shopping over buying brand new clothes. Decreasing your carbon by consuming less and gardening and planting more. Looking at supporting local business rather than going to the bigger chains. And then earlier on, we had somebody talk about turning your car on and then checking your phone and sitting in a parking lot for a really long time and being more aware of the fast food lines that you're going through, sitting in your car while it's running. So, and then air drying clothes. That one just came in. Overusing a dryer.
I love that one because for me, my jeans, I don't dry them in the dryer anymore because they're very heavy and they take a lot of energy to dry. So I like some of my things dried, but to me, my personal example is illustrative of you don't have to do it all, because I will be honest, I like my towels in the dryer, but I don't use any chemical sheets to treat them or make them softer. I have those big blue balls, as I call them, that I've had for years. So I haven't done everything. But if you just take your jeans out every week, all of our family's jeans, I put them out in the back, and guess what? Sun-dried works. So that's a really good one. And there was another one I wanted to comment on. Clothes. Thanks, Myron. How did you know that? It's like, I
read this thing, and Americans wear their clothes about 5 times before they get rid of it. Something like 80% ends up in the landfill. In China, they wear them once or twice before they get rid of them. Plus all the water it takes to make cotton clothes and all that stuff.
Great answer. So what does that mean? What does that look like for someone like me who does public speaking and wants to look nice? Well, you can do a lot because I am a 100% committed, and I'm calling it out. I go to Goodwill. I go to their boutique if I want something a little bit dressier. Lynn is a big savers. You and your kids, savers, saves you. Beautiful jeans, repurposed. I like to brag about my resale clothes, and some people don't. They'll say, "Oh my God, that dress is so nice. Where did you get it?" And I go, "Goodwill." And you should see the looks on some people's faces like, "Oh, okay, wow, great." And it takes a little bit more time. But there again, I am a fan of Goodwill, even though people say, "Do you know about that CEO that made so much money?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do, but that's not all Goodwills." And they do amazing programs here in this city to help retrain people and get them back in the workforce to work with at-risk kids. So my donations of clothes help with their sales, which all help to support programs. And I'm also a really good customer at Goodwill. Great answers, you guys. And online, thank you. It's wonderful to see people jumping in and driving less. One of my things too is taking your damn car, your foot off the gas. I see people leave their cars running and they go in a store and they come out and I'm like, what are you doing? And Mrs. Green should have like a big sign that they put on their windshield saying, "Shame on you."
Steal the car.
Huh?
Just steal the car.
Just, I'll hug the car. Okay. I love this slide. I love this slide because look at it. Who said eat less meat? Katie, she knows it already. She told me that she stopped eating beef when she was 13 and she's 41. So eating meat, this is how much, 3,578 pounds of CO2 average for eating meat. Having a beer, I would say, hey, instead of eating meat, go have a beer. Drink a cup of coffee, that's a less imprint. Reading the newspaper, if you recycle it, that's even better. I never thought that I would be that person that reads online, but I am now more because I wanted to hold it in my hand. And now I've adapted and I read online. You can't go back and underline it or clip it unless you print it, but I don't like it. Using the refrigerator, I mean, we all do this, but it gives you a sense, I hope, of what I mean when I say we're all impacting the carbon cycle every day by what we do. Running the dryer is another one, the air conditioner. I mean, we have a battle of the thermostat in our house and we found a happy medium. This year, it's actually, we're using more heat, it seems, but turning on the lights, all of these things that I never thought about 15 years ago. I just turned on the lights. I just turned up the air conditioning. I just went to the store and bought pot roast or, standing rib roast or something like that. And now I think, well, so we just don't buy beef in our house anymore. And I cheat. I cheat by when I go out, sometimes I eat beef because it's not that I don't like it, but if I do it once every 5 months, it's not the same as serving it in our family 2 or 3 times a week. Anybody want to add to any of this or comment? It's such a great slide so that to me, this informs you so that you know areas where you can cut it down. And eating less meat, you don't have to cut it all out. So I have another funny story. I think we're doing okay on time. My daughter, Katie, who's here, is a documentary rock star. I'm like, how do you find this stuff? So lately we're on the how they treat the chickens. And it's not good, everybody. See in there, it's not good. They don't treat the chickens well. So that was my go-to meat. And I don't feel like I can do that anymore. And I'm glad you're shaking your head. No, I can't do it because it will choke me. And I love chicken. So now I am researching here in Tucson, and I found a place, so I'll be eating less chicken too, because one chicken is $30. So that means it's a demographic, because can I afford one 30-pound chicken a week? Probably, if you take out all the beef that I'm not buying and other things. But it's really hard and expensive at this point to eat any meat that's ethically, morally, non-methane producing, non-cruelty. It's hard.
That last part is impossible.
It's almost impossible. I know. I'm going to check out this guy whose farm I found, and I'm going to go down there and look and see if the chickens really are. Because all those labels about, cage free, it's so BS. Like I call BS. Don't listen. It's not cage free. That just means they're not in cages. They're outside shoved together. It's terrible. So the chicken videos, and there's the whole social justice piece, which we can't go into. I think this is another great one. I don't fly a lot, especially since COVID. But when you look at it, here's the deal, guys. Driving, all the trucks, all of the everything that is transporting our food, our clothing, our gasoline, everything is from transportation and driving and emissions. I mean, how many Amazon trucks do you see in your neighborhood? I would say 5 a day in my neighborhood, maybe. They're everywhere. They have their own trucks. There are so many trucks around just for the consumer, let alone the trucks on I-10 or I-25 or I-40 that are causing emissions. It doesn't matter what kind, how they're fueled. It's having an impact on the planet, and it's bumping up against the roof of the greenhouse. That's how I like to think about it.
So, Gina, we have a question online that says, what about the beauty industry?
So bad, like so bad. Maybe that's the next topic, Tara, for Mrs. Green's World to present on, because the beauty industry, in a word, is filthy. It's not only filthy, Americans are the victims in many ways, because when I started this, I thought the government had a lot more regulations in place to protect our health. They don't, and a lot of that has to do with lobbying. So in many European countries, the ingredients that are in our makeup and our blush and our lipstick and our mascara and our shampoo and conditioner and the myriad of products that we use, there are ingredients in them that are banned in most of Europe. And that's absolutely, I can do this one all day long. So the beauty industry is not only filthy, it's wrought with abuses for the social justice piece of people that have to work in factories and be exposed to these things. When you think of the containers that go in the garbage that are then in the landfill, it all comes with a price. And it's very hard. That's a hard one for me. I saw that you have a bag from Aveda, and I do Aveda. It's not perfect. It's so much better than most of any beauty product you can buy. So I'll settle for most. I know Kelly, who's on the, she doesn't wash her hair a lot. It's gorgeous all the time. But when she does, and she can do on the message, I think she uses vinegar, and her hair does not smell like vinegar. I can attest to that. It evaporates. But think about it when you get up in the morning, and this is mostly for women. When you get up in the morning, what you do from the time you get up to the time you get in your car. And I've done it because I'm Mrs. Green. And I get in the shower and I use shampoo and I use conditioner and I use a body wash and I use a soap. And I used to use shaving cream to shave my legs. So that's a razor. Just in your regular rituals of what you do every day, carbon footprint, carbon footprint, carbon footprint. And I don't want it to feel heavy. It's been liberating for me. I mean, my daughter here could tell the story, but I started using bar soap for my hair. And this is why I think there's an appeal with Mrs. Green. It made my hair really dry and I felt better as a human being, but my hair was like straw. So I went to the Aveda store and asked them for their least toxic shampoo and conditioner. And my hair's in better shape. So I don't know if what kind of sellout that is, but they do a lot of good for the planet as well in terms of getting water to places that don't have it and the recyclable containers. But this gives you an example of where you start and the difference that you can make. So here we've gone over this a little bit. These are little steps. So you think of a footprint, you only walk one step at a time. And I love this foot. Like we've used this a lot. And see that big area, that's where your big toe is. That's driving and getting gas. Even the emissions that come out of the gas tank when you're filling your tank, it's disgusting. I don't like the smell. And that means nothing because CO2 doesn't smell. you can be sure of that. But it makes me think this is terrible. It can't be good for the planet. Biking, walking, taking public transportation, those are hard in our city. For me, those are very hard. I'm not going to take the bus anytime soon because time efficiency, which matters also. But this city has a very intentional plan to add more transportation. Believe it or not, the streetcar is used a lot by students, like significantly. It's a very good thing, a safe thing for students. So people that say, I saw it was empty. Well, it could have been empty because everybody was in class. But a lot of times when I see it, so every city that I know of is working on plans to reduce their CO2 emissions, to reduce all of their emissions, because it's creating havoc in so many ways, including impacting people's health and the increase in the number of people with asthma. So it's all part of that circle. I think it would be very interesting if I get to stand here in a year to talk about what's happening with the electrification of America. And I'm going to tell this story, and I'm not talking out of turn. I worked very hard with a group of downtown, the Hotel Congress and Tucson Electric Power and Chapman Automotive Group, which are major supporters of let's get more electric vehicles out there, and Local First in Mrs. Green's world. We worked really hard to get an EV charging station, a supercharger downtown at Hotel Congress. And I was there last night to see the Oak Ridge Boys, and downtown is hopping. Like, I was like, am I in Las Vegas? Not to mention some of the women that are not spending too much of a carbon footprint on clothes because of the amount of clothing they had on. I was like, what? Made me feel very old. It's like, oh, they're not spending a lot on clothes because they have hardly any on. I did. I did. I don't feel very old, but last night I was like, oh my God. Okay. I said, Katie, is that a thing? So she keeps me young. But using electric vehicles, I believe that it has to happen. I believe that car manufacturers know it. When you have GM on board, when you have it, and it's not just Tesla. And when GM gets on board, it's like Costco carrying organic vegetables. They'll start making electric vehicles at a price point that it is affordable for most people. And even then, if you are in a lower socioeconomic category, we have to figure out how to address that as well. And a lot of people, literally on the south side, they take buses because there are more buses there. There are more bus routes, but they have a dramatic increase, much more polluted to the other side of Broadway. I mean, I've seen heat maps because of a lot of things, not as many trees, not as many green spaces, but a lot of buses, and the city's working on it, and TEP is working on it. And what I was going to tell you about, it's funny how it's like this just in. That's how my brain works. This just in. What happened with TEP and with Hotel Congress is there were problems with the chargers, and the reason is it's new technology. When you're early adopter, you are going to find things that are not as easy and as simple and all ironed out, but the thing to me that's very telling about this group of people for downtown, they're committed. So everybody did triage, and we're going to get a new charger down there, and it will be back up and running within the week. So it's like, let's be part of the change and make some really good things happen. Fashion, it's filthy. It's not just filthy in terms of water use, in terms of pollution from the dyes that are toxic. It is deadly for many of the people that work in factories. And again, it's the part of me that enjoys this journey, that suffers as a part of it, but fashion is pretty much filthy. And, you can say, well, you got this at Goodwill. Actually, a friend of mine gave this to me because we're into like repurposing our clothes as friends. But you have to start realizing, you don't have to, I don't like saying that, but you might want to consider realizing the impact of fashion and manufacturing and packaging and shipping and dyeing and cultivating the fashion industry. And in my lifetime, when I was young, my mother always took us to thrift shops. And she said, don't tell anybody, because it wasn't in. I mean, a lot of my friends were like, and Myron shaking his head, like, you didn't say I got this at a thrift shop. My mother dressed us very well in thrift shops, and we always went to like the next town, which was a lot higher end. And, she'd get my father Brooks Brothers suits, but my father didn't go into his office in New York City and say, I'm wearing this Brooks Brothers suit and I got it in a thrift shop in Red Bank, New Jersey. So now people brag about it. They're proud of it. They're proud to say, my kids shop there. All of my kids do. They're Goodwill shoppers or repurposed shoppers. There's a place in Taos, New Mexico called Renew. And I'm telling you, I shop all the time, every time I go there, because I know I can get some really good finds at an affordable price. It's cheaper. And even though someone might have been hurt in the first making of it, I'm preventing somebody from making it again. How do we reduce it? Okay, we did that. Next slide, Gina. How am I doing? Oh, I better hurry. Okay, here's another look at what you can do. Switch off the lights. It really matters if we all do it, and then you tell 10 friends. Take the stairs. I do that. AC on, shut the windows. Like, this is like not rocket science, but people do leave their windows open. Take shorter showers. I'm proud of that. I time mine sometimes, and I average 5 minutes. I don't know what people do in the shower for 20 minutes, and I probably don't want to know. Turn your computer off. It's a habit. People leave their computers. You see 20 people in an office, they leave their computers on. It's emitting heat, and it's hot. Unplug electronics when not in use. Keep the room temperature moderate. Wear a sweater. That's a big thing in our family. Do full loads of laundry. All these things matter. And what I love about this is use fewer or share appliances. I'm not sure, like a hair dryer, I was thinking about that. Switch out your bulbs. Oh my gosh. It's the heat that's emitted from an incandescent bulb versus an LED. It's not, you can't even talk about it in the same sentence. Okay. This is the big, what am I forgetting, Katie? This is the big one to me about, these are the 7 R's. And it used to be 3, reduce, reuse, recycle. It's not. Every aspect of your life can be done with an R in front of it when you look at these. Re-gift. You should have seen our Christmas this year. Oh, there's my alarm. I'm out of time. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. It was a great presentation. I'm out of time. No, I have like 10 more minutes, and I'm going to stop in case there's questions. Refuse. The first thing is to not use it. Say no in the first place and cut down on things you're doing. Reduce your consumption. Reuse. It's so much fun if you get into it. You can share things with friends. I love the regifting thing. And like for Christmas, which is big in our family, we did a whole different thing this year with a big family group in Denver. And we regifted. And I said, well, that was mine, but I'm giving it to you. And there's something noble and joyful in it and fun, because I'm not giving them some, used pair of shoes or anything like that. Get things fixed. Oh my gosh. In our old neighborhood, we had a dumpster. And I cannot believe what people threw in the dumpster every 6 months. James, my husband, proudly said, I'm the neighborhood dumpster diver. And he would go in and get stuff out of the dumpster, and we'd bring it to Rise Equipment Recycling. We'd donate it to Goodwill. We would donate it to shelters. People just dumped stuff, computers and cords, and nothing like that should be going in a dumpster because there's a place for it. It takes a little bit more time. Did I go ahead too fast? So this one, I just want you to, oh, I'm going the wrong way. That's okay. It's not the first time. Let's see. It's okay. I'm just going to leave it at that. I want to know if there's questions. And we thought about, sometimes we say, we use the one from the Lorax, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot. It's not going to get better. It's not. Well, the thought that I would love everybody online and here to leave with is, every journey. Tara's 26-mile marathon in Phoenix last week began with the first time she put her foot down, 1 step. And that's how we have to think of it, so that it doesn't become overwhelming and I have to throw out all my beauty products and I have to start shopping here and I can't do this and God forbid I need a new dress. That's not going to work. It's not sustainable. What can I do today that's doable? And I have things that I do every day in my life to make a little bit of a difference, like buying a healthy toothpaste. It matters because I'm brushing my teeth, it's going down the drain, it pollutes the water or not. So there are so many things that we can all do as individuals. Are there any questions, please?
I don't know if you know the answer. Do you know what the ratio of water to vinegar for washing your hair should be?
Oh my God, That's a good question. If Kelly is still on, we might have to follow up with that. And you know, vinegar is the non-toxic solution to so many things. When I think about what I learned from my mother, who planted these seeds in me, she used vinegar for the windows. She said about Windex, she said, first of all, our family couldn't afford Windex. We didn't buy things like that. She was very practical. And she said, that color does not occur in nature. I mean, you see that blue color? It's a fake dye. And so you're using it, you're getting it on your hands. And fluorine, she used vinegar for lots of cleaning. She used a good old-fashioned pumice stone. And I went through that phase of one of my joyous things when I used to, regularly clean my own toilets is putting that stuff that made all the bubbles. I thought that was like the happiest day of my life when I saw that, because look at all this, it's creating all this stuff and it makes cleaning the toilet tolerable. Well, that's toxic. It's just, I don't use that anymore. It's not good.
So we have an update on the apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar.
Yes, not just vinegar.
Not
cider.
red wine vinegar, everybody.
Yes,
You might end up with a different
vinegar.
color hair.
1 part apple cider vinegar to 5 parts water. So
Got it?
1 to 5.
So that's a little bit of vinegar in a bottle and you put it in like it's your shampoo. I'm not there yet, but let's hope I'll get there, because I'm doing a lot more than I ever did to move this needle forward. Any other questions there? No more questions? You guys, anybody? Katie, anybody have questions, feedback, comments? Put your thinking caps on.
I have one story, and it just made me think about the whole repair. My daughter had a pair of sunglasses that were she probably bought them on the road at a gas station. They were probably $9.99. She loves these glasses. They broke. She says we can take them to get them fixed. And I went into our little neighborhood guy. He wants to charge $59 to get them repaired. And of course I said, well,
No.
no, I'm not going to do that. But then I went home and my husband was like, you should just get them fixed for her favorite sunglasses. And then I'm thinking, well, it might be better than going to buy a new pair that's already been, made and putting a footprint out there. So maybe I will spend the $59 and get it fixed. But
It's a really good point.
It is.
It is a very good point.
So tight.
Myron?
How much carbon does it take to make $59 to pay to fix them?
That's true too.
But that's a
I don't know.
great question for a scientist. I mean, it really is.
Solder, like a new arm. I don't know what he's going to do. But yeah, you're right. It's a balancing act.
Well, that's always been my question about a lot of these things is how much does it cost to be cleaner energy? And if it costs more to do that, then does that really save anything?
I hear you.
I don't know the answer to it.
It's not, people ask me questions all the time, I'm sure you can imagine. And I say, it's not a silver bullet. All this hasn't been figured out. When you figure in the history of time, we're about like this much, because all of these things happened really fast, pretty much since 1950. So there aren't clear answers. When it comes to driving, what I do believe I know is that we have to get to the electrification stage of vehicles and stop with the CO2 emissions, and it's got to be affordable.
How much lithium are we going to use up?
And reuse and mine, and how much is in landfills that we can go after. I mean, it's really scary what's happening in terms of building areas that have to have security guards overnight. Tara. Yes, Myron said there's a dilemma sometimes between the cost of what you're doing versus doing the right thing. Is that fair to say, Myron? Sometimes you think about, well, I'm going to do this, but there's a carbon footprint associated with it as well. Is that articulating? Yeah, and it's true. Should I do this or should I do that? And which is better? Katie?
I just was for not eating meat and dairy and reducing your driving or your car usage. Those are things that absolutely make a difference, no matter what. Like huge impact.
Yes.
Eating less meat, have less dairy. There's so many things tied into that that's something that there's no
And for the most part, and Tara, you can agree or disagree, those choices are heart healthy. And she did her thumbs up. If you're eating less red meat, some people say to me, oh yeah, well, easy for you to say, you can afford organic vegetables, which you should never assume about what my financial situation is. And that's what I said to the person. What I will tell you is, if you're buying a big steak, which blows me away, Lynn could tell you a story that will crack you up. And my friend Molly, I had no idea how much beef costs these days. And I was like, that cost how much? And you can buy a hell of a lot of kale or spinach or carrots or lettuce for what one steak costs. So when people say, I can't afford organic, if you're buying meat and replace it with vegetables, you can afford organic. Trust me. And I'm sorry I'm saying this, but since Amazon bought Whole Foods, organic's a lot cheaper there. And I'm not a big Amazon fan at all, but I buy the vegetables that are less expensive because they're better for the planet. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, every time we buy something, we order the next thing. So we have to think about, well, we need it, whether it's food or clothes. Every time I people buy meat, they're ordering the next piece of meat. So they're ordering the continuity of that.
It's a cycle.
Every time they buy a bag of beans that feeds them a lot better than the meat anyway, it's going to cost them a fraction of the meat. And it's for the health. It's for the health of the planet, and our health is completely linked with those choices.
That's a
And every
great
time I buy
example.
something, it's like, do I need it? Do I want it? If it's a want, I'll wait a few weeks, and if I still want it, maybe I'll get it. But most of the time, it's like, yeah, I don't need it.
And to your point, you're thinking about the next thing as well. It's a consciousness and being intentional. You know, when we first started on this journey, every pot of beans I ever tasted that my husband made was made with a ham hock. Well, pig was one of the first things to go in our family. I mean, it was. My daughter said, I'm not, and veal, and that was like a family fight. I haven't had veal. The thought of eating veal can make me nauseous, actually, because of the cruelty factor. But when you talk about beans, so now I said, how can we have beans? It's just one little ham hock. Well, now, guess what? We use vegetable stock and onions and garlic, and my husband makes the best beans, and it's better for my heart. It's healthier, and it's healthier for the planet, but it was a process. And he makes damn good beans. So that matters. It's just getting used to new habits. Great questions, you guys. I mean, I'm thrilled because I didn't know if I'd be talking to Tara and I don't know your name. Kate, but I knew Kate was coming, and Lynn, and thank you guys for coming. For everybody online, if I didn't look at you enough, I'm sorry. It's easier to look at the people that are here, and thanks for joining us. And there's, I think, Kate, that's the last slide, right? I don't know how to go back. It's okay, wait. This is what I want to say. Connect with us. We have someone doing our social media named Jen that's kicking butt. I mean, she's doing such a good job, and it's informed information about our local community, about our country, and about the world in terms of where we are. So like Mrs. Green's World on Facebook, Instagram, follow us on Twitter. I mean, you can really get sucked into any of these social media platforms, which I do. But I would say the bang for the buck, we have done some of the best podcasts that you could ever want to listen to. And it's because of the combination of my team and me preparing for them. And the guests that we have are, I've never had a guest. I had one guest, actually. It was kind of a little bit of a kook. And my husband said that after we were off, it was the content. But I've been doing this for 14 and a half years. And every time I get off a podcast, I call Kelly and she says, I know, it was like the most interesting one you ever got to do until the next one. So I would love you to just subscribe to our podcast. They're everywhere. They're on Spotify. They're on Pandora. They're on Apple. They're on Google Radio. So podcasts are the thing. And almost everybody seems to have one now, but I had one a long time ago. So thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Yay! Thank you, online people. I hope you